Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Rob Sayegh Jr., a children's book author and illustrator. You are watching episode 2 of my Texture Tuesday series where I break down my illustration process each week, highlighting different methods and materials to create unique textures and effects using Photoshop and Procreate for the iPad Pro. This episode, we are focusing on a kitchen staple that I am sure almost all of you have in your cupboards or in your kitchen drawers, aluminum foil. I love aluminum foil because it is a really fun way to mimic metal textures. You can also crumple it up to make it look more worn or damaged. Plus, if you scan it, the light from the scanner creates a really cool shimmering, almost iridescent-like effect, which is great for showcasing reflective surfaces. For this demo, I thought it would be a really fun idea to paint a take on a classic metal character, such a cool character, the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. So let's dive in and get started. So we're gonna make a few variations of our aluminum foil to give us options as we render, and you always wanna plan ahead. So what I like to do is if I'm making one texture, I'll make a couple variations so I have them ahead of time. So when I scan them all in, they're all organized together and I can look at them as a set. So this is the first one that I'll use as my middle. This will be my average worn look. If you want to make it more worn, I suggest just crumpling it or just doing a few folds. I wouldn't crush it too hard because it rips apart as you pull it back out, but I would just fold it a little bit, kind of like this, like you're wrapping something inside of there, and unfold it again. And you can do this a few times so you get different variations, but this is a good level. Remember, the size you use is the way it's going to be scanned into the computer. So you want to have different variations of size, like this is a little bit smaller, here is a little bit bigger, just so you have options later on. And I also want to scan a super clean version, so I have one without any levels of wornness, which I actually taped one piece so it stays nice and firm in the scanner. It's very easy to crumple aluminum foil. I actually taped this to the back of a cutting board. So we're gonna scan a few options in, and even this little option, this is a really worn option that I really crushed, that would be easier to scan in smaller pieces just because, again, it rips very easily. So we're gonna scan all these in, and remember to scan everything at a high DPI, at least 300 DPI. If you don't have a scanner, you can always use your phone camera or any kind of camera you have. That's a great option. Just make sure the lighting's good and it's a really high quality picture. So a really high megapixel would be great. But we're gonna scan ours in. I always scan my textures in at 600 DPI as TIFFs. So I have the option and its flexibility, and if I want to use them for books later on, which are very large files, I have that for myself later on. Again, planning ahead is a big time saver in the long run. So let's get started. Okay, so I've officially laid out all my paths and all my basic shapes, and now we're going to start adding the aluminum foil texture. So we have about 7 here, and they are all different kinds of folds, different techniques, and as you can see, the flatter ones stay more natural to the color, where the more crumpled up ones pick up much more of the light. So I think the one I'm going to use is probably this one. I think it's just a nice balance. Maybe this one is a little too folded. Let's try this one first. And again, this is Adobe Bridge. This comes with the Creative Suite subscription or Creative Cloud subscription. And I use this because it allows me to look at TIFFs very easily without using Finder. It kind of slows down the computer, and it also takes a little longer to generate a preview. Bridge is great because it shows you a preview of your high-res file, but at a much quicker rate. So I love using it with Photoshop, and it, just like with Finder on the Mac, you can just drag and drop. So I'm gonna just take this, drag and drop it onto, I'm gonna do the body first. I'm gonna start positioning it the way I want. As you can see with this little icon here, it means it's a smart object, which means any updates we want to make to this, and if we copy it to several different layers, it'll adapt to the same format that of all the changes that we've made. So if we use this again and we need to make changes, I love using smart objects because it keeps my textures consistent across all the layers. So first thing we're going to do is what we learned last week about applying the clipping mask, which is Option click right here. And that's not too bad. I might shrink it just a little bit here. And now we're gonna pick what layer mode we want it to be. And I think because it's so sharp, multiply might blend a little weird and make it very murky. So I'm going to use an overlay, which makes it a lot brighter, but I'm gonna teach you guys a quick trick to level out the color. I like the blue because it helps stand off of the white. So to get that back, I'm actually gonna hold Option here and drag my layer of my basic shape. I make a copy of it on top of the foil. And the reason being is that we're gonna actually change this layer mode to color so it brings back some of the blue. And that's about the level of the texture I want it to have. I lowered it a little bit. We can bring it up here, going back to our aluminum foil. And what I'm trying to achieve is just that shine that's also a little bit whimsical. I don't want it to be too overwhelming on this piece. We can try it, if we bring it back up, we can try going to a normal layer and see if that's any better. That's actually pretty cool. Let's try, what I suggest is just trying it across a couple of these and see how it looks across multiple textures. So I think the trick might be just lowering this a little bit more, or let's see if we bring back this on top and lower the color a little bit so you do get a little bit more of that shine. So what we're doing is dragging our texture into everything that's this light blue color. So we're going to start with the arm up here, and as you can see, we're going to have to move it a little bit. That looks great. Maybe a little bit more, so I get a little bit of I like that it's a little darker right here. And let's just do this, and then let's just take the color just so we have it to color, lower it a little bit. Let's see what we have. This one is that's too low. %. Cool. And then keep going. And this layer's a little bit too. And I'm going to turn this one. Start laying them all in, and then we can adjust later. And the face is going to be tough because it's where we have a lot going on. So we just want to make sure we pick a spot that doesn't have so much texture going on. And we might pull it back just a little bit more than the others, just so there's a little bit more contrast. Okay. I'm just going to move these down so we're in the right spot. Right there. Okay, so this is what we have so far. And now we're going to just play with some of the other textures and start making this work a little bit more cohesively. and to start giving it a little bit, it lost some of the volume and the depth. So what I'm going to do is start adding even some shadows using like a little bit of a rougher brush where parts meet. So like right there, and using the same way to paint. I use this for my shadows, but using Option Click to limit where your shadows go and to also limit things to specific shapes is very useful. And you can continue to layer in textures and other elements. It just makes it much more versatile. And if you ever need changes for a client or just because at the end of the piece you want to adjust some things, it's much easier to work this way than to paint directly on the layer. So I highly suggest it. So I'm going to speed up the video as I work some of these other things out, and then I'll come back when we're starting to add a few more textures. So to help add more contrast, I'm going to be adding another texture here, which should help create a little bit more depth. I think it'll actually help more if I put it on the blue parts, so it'll help make the aluminum foil pop out a little bit more and really play up that metallic finish that I'm looking for in this piece. This texture is actually a piece of just really messed up cement that had a lot of contrast. It also has a little bit of that blue coloring that really helps add a little bit more to this piece. Since I've had the blue and I made the arms more blue, I went back and made the aluminum foil more like its natural color and really pumped it up. This is going to really help allow me to accent pieces like the mouth, jaw line, and the nose and the hands, and really call attention to those pieces to show more that he's a robot and call attention that he's a robot. Now I'm going to be adding some other textures to help play up the other animals, like an acrylic texture for the bird, and the heart was like a watercolor texture. And now I'm going to be doing the grass, so I'll just use a couple shades of green just to not overwhelm it with too much texture. Now I'm just adjusting my lighting overall. I think I'm going to remove the bird. It's taking away from the overall piece. adding some slight texture behind the grass so it sticks out, and really making sure I call attention to this heart that he's chasing. It's a classic story within the Wizard of Oz, and I really want to highlight it as part of the piece that helps add to the storytelling of just my single image. Thank you so much for watching episode 2 of Texture Tuesday. Stay tuned every week for new textures, ideas, and processes that I'll be showing you along the way. And keep drawing. If you like what you see and you want to see more of my work, please visit me at www.robsayart.com or visit my Instagram at robsayart. Thanks, guys, and see you next week.